Hello everyone and welcome to my Retro Media Room. Today I wanted to do a fun video and take a look at 10 movies from my collection that are so awful, so bad, they're actually good. Sometimes quite hilarious. If you like this sort of content, please hit that subscribe button and the notification bell to keep up with my latest videos. Please hit the like button, share it with your friends. I'd really appreciate it, and we'll get started. And starting off the list, we have the 1991 film Troll 2. This is the 20th anniversary edition. I haven't seen this in a while, so I can't give you every detail about the movie, but I remember laughing a lot with it. It's a terrible movie, that's for sure. But it does have the viral moment from this, which is the scene of the guy saying, "They're eating her, and then they're gonna eat me. Oh my god!" So that scene is from this, if you've ever seen that clip and didn't know what it was from. Now, if you want something that's a little bit more tame, that's not an R-rated horror film, that's hilarious and terrible like this is actually only PG-13. Doesn't really have a whole lot of gore in it. It's mostly like goo and green and goofy stuff like that, all these goofy looking trolls. So it's not scary, it's not over the top. Well, it's over the top, but it's not like crazy graphic or anything. So if you want something that's more along those lines, you'll be able to check this out and enjoy it with somebody, with family members that are maybe a little younger and you want to expose them to something that's old school and funny and crazy. So yeah, Troll 2, this is an interesting one. Up next, and none of this is in any particular order, by the way, it's just simply 10 movies, but we've got Ed Wood's classic Plan 9 from Outer Space in color, also in black and white. This movie is an absolute horrible classic. It's hilarious. It is charming. Once again, since this is from 1959, and it has no real adult content to it, if you want to show it to somebody who's younger, this isn't R-rated, gory, scary, or anything. It's just goofy, and it's really, really funny. Now, if you've ever heard of or seen Tim Burton's Ed Wood, that movie, of course, basically was a biopic of Ed Wood's life as a director who's labeled the worst director of all time. And when you watch this movie, which they recreated scenes from in Ed Wood, showing the behind the scenes of what went into making this movie, it is absolutely a treasure. It is absolutely hilarious. And watching this after watching Ed Wood, or vice versa for that matter, is really a treat. So I recommend that for sure. This is obviously this is a rather simple release of it. Yeah, I mean, if you want to see something that's from the 1950s in black and white, there's just really nothing. Ed Wood's original movies, and this was his biggest production. This was his most successful production. I mean, it's absolutely a treat. You're going to laugh. You're going to have a good time. And next, we have what is easily the worst and most hilarious Exorcist clone, Beyond the Door from 1974. Evil grows beyond the door. This movie is absolutely hilarious. Every time I watch it, I laugh my butt off. I'm a fan of The Exorcist, of course. I'm a fan of classic horror films. And if you're the same, you're going to absolutely get a kick out of this. It is it is a triumph of bad filmmaking. It's so funny. The editing, the cinematography, the soundtrack, it just, man, it is unlike anything else I've ever seen. It's really unique in that regard. And here's the original cover art. And that might ring some bells for some that have been around for a while. So, man, this movie's an absolute terrible treasure, and I love it, especially if you're a fan of The Exorcist and you want to see, like, what's an Exorcist clone that's hilarious or terrible? Well, this is easily the best of those movies. And next, we have Silent Night, Deadly Night from 1984. He knows when you've been naughty. I just watched this and part 2, which is going to be up next year, for the first time the other day. These movies are fantastic in terms of how bad they are. It's really great. So just like you see on the cover, this is very Christmas themed. You have a guy dressing up as Santa Claus. There's nudity and violence here. So once again, this is not for kids. These are R-rated movies for a reason. But if you're an adult, you want to see something, particularly the unrated version, which I recommend. So interestingly, in the movie, they did a really good 4K restoration of the original film. So it looks really nice. But they weren't able to, and they noted in the beginning of it that they weren't able to fully restore the uncut or the cut scenes from the movie. So the unrated version, you kind of go from low quality to high quality back and forth at times, but it's still worth watching. It's still worth seeing the cut scenes. So the first movie, it's worth watching to see the setup for it. And there's some really hilarious moments in it. It's really interesting. It is entertaining in its own right if you like this kind of stuff or if you want to see a Christmas theme. But where things really shine and get absolutely hilarious are in part 2. So this has the famous viral moment where you got the guy standing in the street with a gun saying, "Garbage day," and then shoots the guy in the street. This is where that came from. That whole sequence is absolutely hilarious. Now, yes, I'm going to gripe about this film because, I mean, what, you're griping about terrible films? Well, yeah, it's a genuine gripe where the entirety, I would say, of maybe the first 2/3 of the film, well over half of the movie, is literally just showing the first movie in flashbacks between a conversation of a psychologist and the main character, who's the brother of the character from the first movie. And all they're doing is rehashing the entirety of the first film and entire sequences, just showing them again, which obviously just saved them money. They didn't really have to film a whole lot for this movie. But once it kicks off where it's all this movie and they're no longer just doing flashbacks, it is absolutely golden. It makes it worth watching. So really combine part two and part one together. I mean, I mean, and this is the guy here in part two. I mean, oh my God. So that's the moment right there. Garbage day. And then he shoots the guy. It is priceless. I love this. I love this. These are goofy, funny, crazy, dumb movies from 84 and 87. You got to check them out. Now, here we have, which is probably the worst movie on this list and probably the most painful to get through, but it's fascinating, is A Talking Cat, or A Talking Cat featuring the voice of Eric Roberts. So this came out in 2013. It looks like it's older. This is the only physical copy of the movie I'm aware of. It's so bad and so low budget and so nonsensical that, I mean, even one of the early sets in the movie that takes place in a guy's supposed home, you can easily tell has been used in adult movies before. It's one of those types of movies. It's hilarious, though. It is challenging to get through. I'm not gonna lie, but if you watch it with a friend for fun, it is. If you want to just say like, what's a movie out there that is so bad that is like the epitome of terrible? I mean, I bought this just because it was so fascinatingly awful. The fact that it exists is fascinating. I don't know how these movies get made, but that's the fascinating question about this. It'll literally make you want to go and look up the behind the scenes about it because it's so fascinating how terrible it is. Really interesting, horrible film. So here we have another horrible yet fascinating movie, the likes of Talking Cat, 2012's Food Fight. This is a CGI animated film. All the names you see up here, Charlie Sheen, Eva Longoria, Hilary Duff, Wayne Brady. These people basically signed up, didn't know what they're signing up for. You know, they phoned it in, they got the voices in, they got the dialogue in. The movie literally wasn't finished. It pretty much was it was shelved, actually. It was quite literally shelved. And then somebody decided, let's go ahead and get this released. And you see why they shelved it. But it's fascinating because you quite literally have a movie that is like, okay, what happens when you have product placement? It is bombarded with product placement, characters that don't work, dialogue that makes no sense, story that makes no sense, horrible animation and visuals, horrible editing. I mean, everything about it is nonsensical, horrible, terrible. Like, if you just are fascinated with filmmaking and you want to see what happens when something fails in every possible regard, that's Food Fight. It should be shown in filmmaking schools and how to not do things as a story, as characters, as animation. Every single thing about it is a display of this is what happens when you do everything wrong, and it's really fascinating. It's really interesting, and this is like Talking Cat. I would consider this a fun challenge to do with you and friends to say, who can get through this, who can make it through the movie. It's pretty agonizing, but that alone is pretty funny. And here we have the Birdemic trilogy. Now, as much as I talked about Food Fight being awful, and it is, and it's easily the worst animated film you'll ever see in your life. Well, these are some of the worst films you'll ever see in your life. In terms of live action, doesn't matter what genre. The director, what's fascinating is that the director genuinely believes, this director, James Nugent, or however you say his name, he genuinely believes or believed that he was making incredible films at the time. Fascinating individual. You could tell that he, in his little brain, that he thought, I am making amazing films here, and these are going to be blockbusters. They did really well in terms of, going on, like basically everybody finding out how terrible they are, how hilarious they are, because they're absolutely hilarious. They're so bad, they're funny. The first one in particular, the editing, the score, the main character, the main actor being, I'm not even kidding, I'm not exaggerating, the lead actor has the least charisma in a performance and in a character I've ever seen across the thousands of movies I've watched. Holy moly. But that's fascinating, though. That's fascinating that, like, they thought they were making something epic here. They genuinely believed that they were making, I say they. Some of the others were just kind of along for the ride and doing it as a job, and they knew it was bad. But the director, he really believed. And that's fascinating. That's so fascinating. Clearly, this is a take on the birds, from Alfred Hitchcock. It's some of the worst editing and music and effects and performance. I mean, everything about it is it's a high level of terrible. It is, and it's fascinating for that reason. So the first one is an absolute classic in that regard. Second one, not quite as fun as the first one, but it's more of the same nonsense. So it's also hilarious. It's goofy as all get out. And the third one, well, I'll have to find out here in the near future and find out how bad it is. Well, no question, it's going to be terrible. But is it going to be as genuinely funny as the other ones? We'll see. The first one, at the very least, if you just watch the first one. It's a wild ride, I promise you. And at number one, we have Tommy Wiseau's The Room. I genuinely love this movie. I really do. This movie is so bad. It is the definition of it's so bad it's good. It seriously is. This defines that genre of movies. I consider it its own genre of bad movies that are so bad they're good. Some of the other ones are, there's nuance to some of the other ones, like Talking Cat being literally hard to get through, and it's fascinating how bad it is. But this, it makes me happy watching it. It's so bad. And Tommy Wiseau is such a fascinating individual. So if you ever have seen this or want to watch it, whatever the case. Now, to be honest, this Blu-ray is pretty rare, hard to get a hold of now, but you can easily get it on DVD or streaming. But man, if you watch The Disaster Artist, which is quite literally Tim Burton's Ed Wood version of a biopic of the making of The Room, I mean, it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful and wonderful how terrible this is. The actors and Tommy Wiseau himself, he was a fascinating person, like strange guy. And he still is. All of his movies are terrible. And I just love how this is so quotable. That's the thing about this. It is so quotable. There's quotable stuff throughout all those other movies, but this is up there with Monty Python Holy Grail level quotable. It is such a treasure. I love this room. I loved The Disaster Artist. I really did. So here's the disc here. So old friend of mine got me this. I'm so happy to have it. I love this movie. It makes me happy. It's easily, if I had to pick only one terrible movie to show you for you to genuinely laugh at and how terrible it is, it would be The Room. That's why I put this at the last one, because this is genuinely my favorite. So that was 10 movies. I just want to do a short list here of have some fun. My cousin wanted me to make this list, so I figured it'd be fun to do, of movies that are so bad they're actually pretty good in their own right. So as I said before, if you like this kind of content, please subscribe. Please hit that like button to help me out. I really appreciate it. God bless and have a wonderful day.